What's up, guys? I've got some stuff going on with the E46 here. To make a long story short, before I started doing videos again this year, I guess last year, I was having problems with the transmission. It's been doing it for, ever since I did my rebuild. It's just been vibrating when it's in drive, when you're at a stop sign or stoplight, and it's just annoying. And, if you would shift into neutral, the vibration would go away. So I knew that that was the transmission valve body. The thing needed to be rebuilt. I pulled it out, sent it off to a rebuilder, installed it, problem solved. It was good for about a year, and then I started having problems with it. It started slipping while I was driving. This was a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh great, I got to pull this thing out and send it back to the rebuilder because it was still under warranty and, see what's up. And so I was doing that. I had the thing on jack stands. I was about to drain the transmission, and I just decided, you know what? Best to remove the fill plug, so that the thing doesn't glug at me while it's draining. And I'm glad I did that because when I pulled off the fill plug, no fluid came out. That means that it was low. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's the problem. I had some extra fluid, so I put fluid back in, and it took like 3 quarts of fluid, about 3 liters, which is a lot. Like I think the fill on this is about 8 liters, 8 quarts. That was really strange. The thing's losing oil somehow. So I wasn't seeing any puddles on the ground where the thing was parked. So it was kind of a mystery to me. So I filled it and I started driving it again, and lo and behold, the problem is beginning again a little bit. And I've put it up on jack stands, took a look at it, and I mean, I can see that there's fluid all on the bottom of the pan, but again, it's not dripping onto the ground. There's no obvious sign of a leak or where the leak is coming from or where the fluid is going, except that the exhaust is kind of covered with oil, sort of caked on at this point. I had thought that this was because this had been going on since my oil pan gasket was leaking, so it was maybe masking the problem for me. But at this point, I think that that is what was happening. It was a slow leak, and as you're driving down the road, the fluid's getting whipped back onto the exhaust and getting burned at that point. So I have decided to just remove the transmission and hopefully take care of both the oil leak on the transmission and the oil leak on the engine, because it's still oil is still leaking on the engine as well. So trying to deal with both of these things, two birds with one stone, that sort of thing. Yeah, so I spent the whole day yesterday just kind of going through the motions of taking this transmission out. I've got almost everything done except for the actual transmission bolts going into the engine and the starter bolts. So that's 6 bolts left to go, and then this transmission is going to be out. Before we do that, I'll take you underneath and you can just kind of see what's going on, and I'll show you what the deal is. All right, so as you can see, I mean, there's a drop of fluid here. So there were a couple of drops on the bottom of the pan here and there. There's some drops here, kind of. What I think might be happening is it's either the gasket on this oil pan, or it's the seal, the oil seal around the oil pump where the torque converter sticks in. Maybe that thing got damaged a little bit. I figure last time I had this transmission out, which was to fix the rear main seal housing, because these 2 bolts, the ones that here and here that go into the rear main seal housing, were stripped out. That was kind of a cause of the majority of my oil leak from the from the engine area. So that I had the transmission out about like over a year ago. Doing that again. So it could be that when I had the transmission out, maybe the torque converter was just sitting in it, and maybe it was putting pressure on the oil seal. Maybe it damaged it somehow. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm gonna change it this time, because I'm gonna have the transmission out. You might as well change that. I have a new seal already. So I'm taking the transmission out for that reason, and I also need it out because I want to solve the oil leak. Let me just describe first. The oil leak has been leaking on the aluminum pan that goes here, and then the oil has been whipping to the sides of that pan, and it's actually been getting all over here. It's kind of hard to, well, yeah, you can see it here. I've kind of wiped it up a little bit, but it's been going backwards along the whole car for quite a while over on this side as well. It's just been making a big mess, and you can see some of it here and a little bit here on the oxygen sensor. So it's just, I'm sick of it, man. I want these oil leaks gone. I want the problem solved once and for all. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm going to try to do here. It's been nagging me for quite a while. Let me show you. So I don't know how well we can see this sort of thing, but there's, yeah, see, it's hard to get the light up in there. So hopefully we can see this, that there's oil on the bolt up inside there. I hope that's coming through. Oil on the bolt up inside there, and it's the same thing on the top one as well, which kind of, you know, tells you that there's oil leaking from that main seal area up in there. And I definitely know it's not the rear main seal. I replaced that. I don't think that that's what it is. Yeah, I mean, you can, guess you can see the oil droplet right there. It's always been sort of right here at the interface between the transmission and the engine. And if it was just that seal on the torque converter side, then I would think that, I mean, how would the oil possibly get onto that bolt? You know what I mean? Because the whole flex plate is in between those two things. So there's no way that the oil would have gotten up in there. That's definitely engine oil, and then there's definitely like transmission fluid also leaking as well. So it's like two oil problems, you know. It's really, really a pain in the ass. Now, I have a theory as to what this could be, and I don't think it has anything to do with the rear main seal itself, or the rear main seal housing, the little thing that bolts to the side of the engine. I think it's coming from right above that. And we're gonna see really shortly. I'm gonna get this transmission out of here. I'm gonna see if my theory is right, because I hope it is. If it's not, I have no other ideas. But we're gonna see this together, guys. We're gonna check this out and see what things look like. And yeah, it'll be interesting. So let me get this transmission out. Alrighty, the transmission is out, as you see. Here is the state of things. I haven't touched anything. You see there's oil all around here and up here. I think definitely you can see down oil around here. Let's get this plate out of here. Haha. So, see oil around here, and then some up here, strangely enough. And I guess a little bit on what, the bottom of the starter somehow. I don't know how that's possible. You guys see anything? Could be, I don't know, could be leaking from the crank sensor. What I was thinking was leaking was this. This is an oil gallery plug, and it's this is supposed to be white, and the fact that this is red right here is what was suspicious to me. So basically, last time I did this, I took pictures, and I was looking back through my pictures, and that's when I spotted that. And you know, I had already wiped everything down, so there was no more evidence of anything. But the fact that that was sort of reddish made me think that oil's been weeping out of there and kind of leaking down and causing all of this. But now that I'm looking at this, I don't know if that's the case. I'm thinking it's just, you know, I don't know, man. I guess it's just the gasket never doing its job and never sealing. When I was last in here, when I was changing things, I changed the gasket, and I put a new plate on, but I remember I didn't change the metal gasket behind it because I didn't have one and didn't want to wait for parts to arrive, so I just moved on with the job. The bolts that hold on the flex plate, those are completely dry. Had enough sealant on them, so nothing was leaking through those holes there. That's definitely not it. Yeah, I don't know. One thing I will mention is that there's two strip bolts on the oil pan, but there's one that's like over here, way on the front, and then the other one I think is over on this side, again over towards the front. This is the side that doesn't have any oil on it. So I've always discounted those because I haven't seen any oil leaking that far forward on the engine. It's always just back here. So, I mean, it could be that. I really don't think that it is, but I don't know. And yeah, I mean, as much RTV as I've put on this thing, a couple different tries, it still just refuses to not leak. Well, I'm gonna do the only things that I can do from here is basically pull this plate off, change the gasket around here, clean everything up. I'll re-RTV everything just in case. I mean, normally I would say do not use RTV because there is a gasket there, but with this particular gasket, the thing sucks. So I'm definitely gonna give it a good dose of RTV there. And I will put some new sealant on these bolts. And yeah, I'm gonna do all that. Still thinking about what I want to do about this, if anything. Do I want to pull that out and reseal it up? I don't know yet. I'm gonna do everything else first, and then I think I'm gonna decide on that last. So guys, this thing, this is how it went on here, right here. On this bottom corner, this has oil on it. And then you can see oil sort of on that gasket right there. So at this point, I'm thinking the gasket is the problem. I guess that makes sense. Should have changed this stupid thing this whole time, or last time. So yeah, I guess that's it. Just a stupid gasket. Kind of pissed at myself, actually. That really sucks. Okay, so I will change this gasket for sure. I mean, look at that. Look at all the oil seepage behind there. Definitely got to be this gasket. So yeah, must be what it was. Stupid. I'm sorry for the interruption, but we have to thank this week's sponsor, which is OEMBimmerparts.com. I love these guys. They've got a great website, super fast 2-day shipping. They've got multiple locations all over the US, so they're gonna get your parts to you really fast. I love the way their website is set up because it's really well categorized, and it's just the OEM parts that you're gonna need for your car, the most popular parts you're gonna need. They also have some aftermarket parts as well, quality aftermarket parts, mind you. But if you're looking for any parts for your E46 or any other BMW, they definitely got you covered. Check out OEMBimmerparts.com. Okay guys, it's been, I think, a week actually. I had to stop and order some parts. So I got them all in from OEM Bimmer Parts, and let's see, we've got obviously a new transmission pan gasket and filter. Got some new exhaust gaskets, and I bought new bolts for the transmission because I noticed all the heads on my old bolts were just kind of stripped at this point. This is an output shaft seal for the rear of the transmission. I noticed mine's leaking just a tiny bit. It's barely weeping, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to replace that one because you need a special socket, and I haven't looked for it yet. I can't, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. This is rear main seal. I just replaced this a year ago, but I'm doing it again this time just because it would be stupid to not replace everything and make everything brand new this time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not making this mistake again. I'm not going to fail to replace something. Everything's getting replaced this time around. So, and plus I think if you're going to remove the rear main seal housing and the rear main seal, you should change it anyway. This is, I haven't read this anywhere, but this is just what I think. This is a seal, an oil seal that does not have a spring on the inside. Most of these old school oil seals have a little spring on the inside holding the seal to the shaft. This one doesn't have that. So it just sort of relies on friction, And if you're removing it and putting it back in, especially if you don't have this tool again, I think you can just, you risk doing damage to it. So it's cheap enough. I think it was 30 bucks. I'm just replacing it. Anyway, let's go down there and get this all installed on the car. Pretty much just this. Guys, I want to talk about this new gasket here. So what I'm noticing when I had this on a second ago is that the bottom of this gasket, it's not going to touch the surface of the oil pan gasket. Exactly, you know what I mean? And it's not like there is, I mean, I suppose part of it might touch down on the rubber that's impregnated into that gasket, but I still think that, oil is just going to get like behind it possibly. It all depends on where, you see where the sealing surface is on this thing. It's like stamped, you know what I mean? And then on the old gasket, that stamped area had just flattened out. So now we got a new one. We've got the stamped area, but it seems like that stamped area begins after the little area where the rubber gasket is. The rubber gasket sort of ends right about here. I mean, maybe that stamped area is on it, but it just feels like, you know, that's sort of a problem area. So what I'm going to do is definitely put some RTV behind this gasket when I put it on, just because I want some to be in there in that area, you know, to just help seal things up. You're definitely supposed to run 2 beads, but I'm just thinking, you know, I can start the bead, put this thing on, put another bead in front of it, just help that whole area to seal up for sure. Because I don't want any more leaks, man. And to me, this is the problem area, because the oil level is sort of sitting horizontal like this, you know? So, and it all beads up in this area, kind of less so in this area, although there was oil there too. There was oil getting on this bolt, but it's mostly sort of down around this area. So yeah, I think that's key. Both of these areas though. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put RTV, put the gasket on, more RTV, and put the thing on. So I actually put blue Loctite on these bolts because I remember that's how they come when they're brand new. Some blue Loctite on them. I put the RTV on there like I said, and all I've done is snug them up so far. I'm going to snug up these top ones as well. And the reason I'm doing that is if you actually read the directions on a tube of RTV, it tells you to put the RTV on, put the part in place, snug it up, and then leave it like that for an hour before you give it its final torquing. The reason for that is they want it to sort of skin over, you know, they want it to start getting a little bit hard so that when you do torque it up, you know, it's actually forming, because RTV is supposed to be a gasket. It's supposed to form up in place, get a little hard, and then you're supposed to tighten it up so that you're squeezing it and it's acting like a gasket. If you just tighten this thing all down and torque it properly, you're just squeezing all of that liquid RTV right out, and it's not really doing what it's supposed to do. You're not doing it as it's designed, installing it as it's designed to be installed. So I'm doing it that way. I'll just wait the hour. It's not a big deal. One last thing I want to mention is about this oil gallery plug up here. I'm not going to do anything with that. I didn't see any oil leaking from that. I didn't have to wipe anything up from underneath it. I don't believe that's a problem at all. I think that thing is sealed properly. So I'm going to wait the hour, do like I said. And I think what I'm going to do also, once this is all torqued down properly, is I'm going to leave this definitely overnight, because when I came out here earlier before I started, there was oil all over the ground. And by the way, I already drained some oil out of this because I noticed that some oil kept weeping along the edge here when I first had this out, and I kept having to like sop it up with my paper towel. So I just decided to drain out a quart or two from the drain pan here. And I figured that that had dropped the level below where that area was, but I guess it still kind of wasn't enough, and some oil was leaking. So the ultimate test for me, before I put everything back together, is I think going to be to fill this thing back up to the proper oil level and leave it overnight, maybe 2 nights, and just make sure that there's no oil on the ground when I come back here, you know, a couple nights later, because I don't want to do this again. I figure I have the time, I might as well make sure that it's good. All right, guys, we're jumping ahead a little bit here. I obviously have everything put back together. I changed the gasket, the filter, all that stuff. I did change the, let's take a look back here. So this whole unit back here, there's a seal on the output shaft right here, and that was leaking a little bit. You can sort of notice there's a little bit of a discoloration right here. So what I did was I pulled this rear housing off, and I did change that seal. And that was something I didn't do when I rebuilt the transmission the first time, like 5 years ago. If you're an old school viewer of the channel, you know what I'm talking about. I never changed that just because I didn't have the specialty socket. But I bought it this time and I did change it. I did film all of it, but it ended up being kind of long, and so I don't want to add it into this video just because it'll just make this video really, really long. But let me know if you want to see it, and I'll stick it in a separate video. Not a problem there. But I got that done. That was fine. Everything's solved there. Got the gasket changed and everything. But obviously the leaks are not solved, and I am really, really disappointed. I've been driving this thing around for a week. So I had it off jack stands, was driving it around, and I've put it back up here to take a look. And yeah, this is what I just found here. I'm super bummed about this. And so I see 2 drops of oil on the bolts inside there, just like before. Drops of oil there and there, down around here. And then I see oil here, but this is completely red. This looks like transmission fluid right here, this drop right here. So it's as if I didn't do anything, you know? It's so frustrating. Yeah, I really don't know what to do next. I really thought that this would solve all the problems. It really seemed like it would, but it obviously hasn't, and that area is still experiencing leaks. I don't know, guys. What would you do next? You know what I'm saying? I've changed pretty much everything I can think of to change. This thing simply refuses to not leak. So I really don't know what to do next. It's kind of a bummer. So guys, what would you do at this point? I'm honestly curious for your input here. I mean, what would you replace next? Would you just new oil pan, new rear main seal housing altogether? That is a used one that I got from a junkyard. Obviously, I changed the rear main seal itself, but that aluminum housing is a used unit from a different car in the junkyard. Is that a problem somehow? I don't think it is. It looks completely fine to me. I don't know. I'm at a loss. I don't know where to go next. I don't know if I did do this job again, I wouldn't know what I would do that would be different this time. Did I get a bad gasket? Maybe. I don't know. So yeah, anyway, I still think the lessons learned from this video are use OEM gaskets on everything. Always replace all the gaskets, torque everything correctly. It's always good advice. Yeah, I wish that there was a better result on this. This was a lot of work to do, and I was really hoping for a good result this time. I thought I had it. I still think that I was right, that that gasket was leaking, and given all the leaks we saw again, the only conclusion I can come to is that that new gasket is also leaking for some reason. So yeah, let me know if you guys saw something that I missed. Anyway, thanks for coming along on the journey. Thanks for watching. Guys, if you want to help me out, continue clicking on these videos because YouTube's going to stop recommending them to you if you don't watch them. So I do appreciate that you are watching. I'm Jason, the 50s Kid. Thanks a lot for watching.